One of the most long-awaited flashbacks in all of One Piece, the God Valley incident will soon be shown, maybe even in the next chapter. And around this incident on God Valley, we have an incredible number of questions. I've brought with me the 5 most exciting questions about God Valley, where we simply hope they will finally be answered now. You guys should also write your wishes in the comments, because one thing is clear, the greatest legends of the old era clash there, but there's still much more. First of all, a general question. We've already had the God Valley incident teased in Kuma's flashback, showing how it all began and everything. We also learned that Kuma ate his devil fruit there, one of those fruits from the boxes, the paw fruit, and he ate it right away as a child, and immediately saved 500 slaves, who were actually meant to be executed there. He teleported them away, just like he later teleported the Straw Hats to their islands during the time skip. Even though he had only just eaten the fruit, he still managed to teleport all those slaves away. That's crazy. Maybe we'll actually get to see that. We also saw Roger, Garp, the Holy Knights there, but also the Rocks Pirates, the most terrifying and strongest crew of them all. But the biggest question I have about this is, where were all the Rocks Pirates? We've already seen the Rocks Pirates appear there, but for example Silver Axe was missing, or Gansui, Don Marlot, Babel. All these new Rocks Pirates that we have only just now been introduced to in the flashback, they were not shown there at all. That's why I'm asking myself, were they simply not present there? Were they maybe still on the ship and deliberately not shown? Or had the Rocks Pirates, at that point in the story, where we are right now, really wasn't all that long ago, already started to split apart? Take Silver Axe, for example. There's speculation that he might be the grandfather of X-Drake. The X-Drake sword unit infiltrated Kaido's crew as Marines in secret. That's the style and method of the sword unit. And maybe Silver Axe was X-Drake's grandfather. He also has an X on his chin, and he actually saw out the Rocks Pirates himself. He wasn't just found and recruited by Rocks D. Zebec. Maybe he was even the one responsible for the kidnapping of Shaki, Silver Axe. And maybe that's why he wasn't really part of the Rocks Pirates anymore by the time of the God Valley incident. Who knows? The fact that there was a traitor among the Rocks Pirates was already teased in the last chapter, directly hinted at by Whitebeard himself, saying that information had been leaked. That's why I'm really curious if we'll learn more about that. So where were all the other Rocks Pirates at God Valley? Was it really just the ones we've seen so far? Or were there more? And then, for me personally, this is really the second most exciting question I want answered. Which devil fruits were still inside those boxes? This is just so interesting, guys. I keep saying it lately. This whole game was made so that the winner, the so-called champion of God Valley, who in the end turned out to be Garling, and the Holy Knights who won the higher prizes would receive these boxes containing devil fruits. Among them were Kaido's fruit and Kuma's fruit. 2 absolutely insane devil fruits, legendary ones in terms of strength, the strongest zone and one of the strongest paramecia fruits, just randomly in there. So of course I'm asking myself, there were still 4 other boxes. That means there must have been 4 other fruits inside, right? And if so, which ones? Could it be that during God Valley, someone else who didn't already have a fruit ended up eating one of those? Did Kaido perhaps eat his fruit there, on the spot? Because remember, Big Mom was the one who originally got it and gave it to him after taking it from Ivankov. Maybe it happened right there. Or maybe one of the other 4 fruits was taken by someone else. At the end of the day, all of those treasures somehow ended up in Roger's hands. Or rather, in the hands of the Roger Pirates as it seems. But it could also be that some of the fruits were taken by the Marines. Garp and his crew, for example, might have managed to secure a few. So the real question is, which fruits were they? Were they devil fruits that we might actually know from the present day? Some really powerful ones. Could one of them even have been the Nika fruit, Luffy's fruit? Though honestly, I can't really imagine that it was simply handed out like that. But maybe something like Law's fruit, or another insanely strong paramecia, could very well have been in there. Or maybe even Logia fruits. Honestly, I can imagine anything when it comes to those boxes, and I think we'll find out. Either Oda will show us or leave it deliberately open. And then of course, there's still the question of what role Shaki plays in all of this God Valley mess. Everyone seems to have shown up at God Valley with their own motives and goals, but we still haven't fully learned hers. Shaki, the beautiful Shaki from back then, adored by everyone, the true treasure of Hachinosu, the Rocks Pirates, Pirate Paradise, was apparently kidnapped, or at least that's what Garp suggested. Could she have been the grand prize? It honestly makes sense. We know the Celestial Dragons, the Tenryubito, and how twisted they are. Of course they would want the most beautiful woman alive, someone so stunning that even her wanted posters were being sold like autographed collector's cards for high prices. She was so breathtaking that people literally fainted when they saw her, so it's only natural that some Tenryubito would want her as their personal slave. And if the story says she was last seen on Hachinosu, then it makes sense that maybe she was kidnapped either by the traitor within the Rocks Pirates themselves, or by some CP0 agent, taken away in the middle of the night in a secret operation. Some people even think, and honestly, I can imagine it too, that Shaki might have been the true main prize of this entire God Valley festival, or hunting game, whatever it was supposed to be. Sure, the devil fruits were important, but maybe the real jackpot was owning the most beautiful woman in the world as a slave. With the celestial dragons, you can really imagine it would at least make some sense why the Rocks pirates showed up there. Of course, Ginny, Bonnie's mother, also broadcasted a signal back then, a transmission that went out to all pirates, most likely to Roger, as well as to the Rocks pirates, saying that the Tenryubato were there, that the world government was present, and that there were insanely powerful devil fruits being offered as prizes. That's why I keep wondering, does Shaki, as was already teased, really play such a major role in this entire God Valley incident? Or maybe not at all. Maybe she simply ran away, didn't feel like staying on Hachinosu anymore, and now it only seems to everyone else like she was kidnapped. Who really knows? And before we get to the absolute biggest question of them all, let's go back to the eternal question. What about Shanks as a baby in the treasure chest? How exactly was he found? We're gonna see all of this now, guys. We're getting God Valley, and if Oda really gives us God Valley in full detail, if he really tells the complete story with everything surrounding it, then we absolutely have to see how Shanks, as a baby, was discovered inside a treasure chest by the Roger pirates after the incident. That has to be shown somehow, somewhere. Maybe we'll even see his mother, placing him into the chest during the chaos. With everything falling apart, she might have grabbed an empty treasure chest at the last moment and hid him inside it, before the treasures were all taken away. And then surprise, one of those treasures turned out to have a baby inside. That could very well be the case. But what I keep asking myself is, why was there a baby brought to God Valley in the first place? Was it perhaps because Garling's wife, with her newborn, wanted to sit in the stands as part of the audience, and watch the event? And then, when everything suddenly escalated into chaos, she got caught in the middle of it? Maybe that's how it happened. I also wonder if Shanks wasn't the only baby there. Could Shamrock have been present too? And what about other babies that might have been born around that same time? Mihawk is a little older, but who knows if we might still see him connected somehow. Or maybe, and this is wild, Blackbeard and even Buggy could turn out to be the sons of Zebec. We already know that Blackbeard being his son is heavily speculated, though never confirmed. But what about Zebek's wife, the woman he supposedly met? Since Zebek's story is supposed to end with God Valley, we'd need some explanation for that as well. But one thing feels certain. The whole Shanks being found inside a treasure chest storyline, that's something we have to see. It would be epic. Or maybe Oda will save that moment for later, since it almost works as an epilogue to the God Valley incident. Imagine the Roger pirates, back on their ship, the Oro Jackson, going through all the treasures they took, and then suddenly they find a baby inside one of the chests. That scene would work perfectly as a closing moment, so maybe it gets held back. Still, it feels like something we absolutely need to witness. And then of course the biggest question of all, and I'll be watching every panel with eagle eyes for this, what really happened to Roxy Zebec? Did he actually die? How was the final blow delivered? Was he utterly crushed and pulverized to the point where you could say, yeah, he's definitely dead? Did he perhaps die with a smile on his face? Did he manage to pull off some final move? Did he even have a devil fruit? Could it be that he suddenly ate one right there at God Valley? Maybe one of the 4 remaining fruits? Exactly the one he needed to somehow manifest his soul or essence somewhere else? Guys, I can imagine the craziest scenarios here. But that's the big mystery. What was Zebek's true fate? The story says he died, and that God Valley itself was destroyed. But what does that really mean? Was it simply erased from maps, wiped from history, so that nobody would know it existed? Or was it physically obliterated, maybe blasted by some insane mother flame type weapon, completely annihilated so that it's gone forever? That's what we still don't know. So yeah, I'm really excited about all these God Valley questions, but the most fascinating one of all is still the fate of Zebec. Is there truly any hope? Could there be some loophole, some tiny needle's eye that he managed to slip through in order to survive into the present day, to continue his plan in some form? That's the part that interests me most. Anyway, those were 5 key points, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you have other questions that absolutely need to be answered as well. Of course, we also know that Whitebeard, at some point, receives the scar that still burns when he later looks Shanks in the face. Maybe he got that scar from Shanks' father, St. Fagal Garling, right there at God Valley. Hard to say if that's where it happened, but it's definitely possible. And then of course another epic question. Was God Valley also the very first time Whitebeard and Roger met? That would be such a legendary encounter to witness. For now though, I'm done here. I wish you all a wonderful day, my friends. Take care.